When he left for work, the morning I left, I knew that if I was still at home when he came back, that was it. Either I'd be 6 feet underground or in a hospital or something. So I had to go. In the beginning, you just think that maybe he's just had a bad day and it can't get any worse, you know, that things will be better the next day. But then, as time goes on, it just keeps getting worse all the time. And you feel as if there's nothing, no matter what you do, he's always going to find something to get mad at you about. You think of suicide, but then you think of the child that would be left with a husband, and you just can't do it. You can't leave the child with a man like that. You don't want him to grow up like him.
The violence that a battered woman experiences is both physical and psychological. Usually it begins in the first 5 years of a relationship, often during pregnancy. It isolates her in a prison of fear and confusion from which there seems to be no escape. Where do you turn to with a small child, without money, without friends, and pursued by the threat of violence or death? Sylvie was lucky. She found a place in a transition house for battered women in Montreal. Every year in Canada, more than 30,000 women pass through shelters like this one, seeking a safe place to hide, information, and an understanding ear. But for every woman who is accepted, 2 others are turned away for lack of space.
The lady that you were expecting.
Okay. Hi, Sylvie. How are you? Okay.
When you walk in, you feel total confusion. You have no idea what's going to happen to you, what you're going to go through, what type of people are there, how it works. It's walking into nowhere, really.
I was just wondering, though, because before the policeman leaves, did you have a police report made?
No.
Did you ask for one?
No.
It's your right.
No, I really don't want to make one.
Most battered women have long since lost confidence in the system, which has never taken battering or its victims seriously. But today, police have a directive to treat wife assault as a criminal offense.
Well, if I have to.
We strongly suggest.
Even when no charges are laid, a police report can be valuable as evidence for future measures the woman may wish to take.
Nobody wants to come to a transition house, and when they come to the shelter, it's because they feel they've exhausted their other resources. That may be a mother's house, father's, uncle, aunt, friend. It could be a hotel if she has access to money, but not all women have that. And when they actually end up at the doorstep of the shelter, what they're looking for is safety, physical safety of a confidential address. They're looking for information on their rights, something about the law, what they can do. And what they get in the process of all this, and they don't usually bank on it, is meeting other women in the same situation. And that, I think, is one of the most important services we offer in a shelter, is that she meets the other women. It helps to cut down the isolation and the guilt she may feel in the situation with her husband.
Anything you want to know about the staff, you can come and ask me.
Okay. I was just about to make some coffee. Would you like some?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'll have some too. Is your first time in a transition house?
Yes. I found that the women really do try to make you feel at home. They took care of my son. They took him in another room to meet other children and gave him milk and cookies and things like that. And they gave me a coffee.
What's his name?
Alexander.
Yeah, how old is he?
He's 2.
They
give you a breathing space to start with.
Well, you have to be patient.
Good night, Sylvie.
The first night I was in a daze, and when I first went up the stairs, you keep thinking, oh my God, you know, there are windows here. He can maybe come in through the windows. And you feel alone, really, even if it's full of people. You feel lost. You feel you don't know what's going to happen, where you're going to go from there, and you start thinking about where am I going to go live, you know, I can't go to the family, that's the first place it'll look for me. So it's, you know, it's very, very confusing, very hard.
Sylvie is safe tonight, but 500,000 women across Canada are not. Battering is no respecter of wealth or education, nor is it usually the response to provocation. But despite the terror it engenders, women are reluctant to break the silence. On average, a woman is assaulted by her partner 35 times before she or her neighbors call for help. Because most people believe that little can be done.
Many women who come to the shelter think that shelters only exist in the United States, or they never heard of shelters before, or maybe they've gone for help to many places. It could have been a policeman, it could have been a priest, it could have been their father, their mother, and so on and so on. And people either do not believe it, or they say, well, that's part of marriage, or they say, well, you must have done something to provoke it. And so many times she may have been refused help and refused access to information that she should have had the right to.
I guess we can chat in here. It's a lot more quieter.
Okay, fine.
How did you sleep last night?
Not very well. Alex woke up about 4 times with nightmares, and I had to bring him in bed with me for the rest of the night, so didn't get much sleep.
Oh yeah, but all kids react like that.
It had been quite a while since
He was like that before.
I could actually feel free with someone. After a few days, you realize that these are people you can talk to, and it's confidential. You can trust them,
And did you have time to decide whether you were going to go back?
Oh, it took me so long to decide that I was leaving that there's no way I can go back. No, I'm not going back.
You haven't seen a lawyer yet?
No, I haven't. I don't know any.
Okay, we have some women lawyers that work with the shelter. If you want, we can arrange an appointment. I can give you the phone number.
Okay, that'd be fine.
So, I guess you'll need to take an appointment with legal aid also.
If you wanted to talk, they were there. If you didn't want to talk, they didn't push you or probe. They gave you the time you needed.
Okay.
Yes.
And later on, I'll explain to you exactly what it is.
Okay.
And
were there a lot of women when you came?
Yes, 6 women.
Up to 50% of the women who come to a transition house will return to their abusive partners at least once.
Like I said,
But ex-residents go on using the shelter long after they've left for ongoing support and to share their experiences with other women in the house.
even though friends.
And you, Maureen, how long has it been since you've come to
Well, it was 3 years ago that I came to Alberta.
How did you hear of it?
Well, I heard from the hospital where I was recovering after the battery. And they sent me to another Auberge transition. And from there I came to here. I was very frightened. And like my son was taken away for such a long time away from me, and that caused me a lot of anxiety and stress. It caused me a lot of health problems.
So your ex-husband abducted your child. You have 2 children?
Yes. My son was a little over 2 years, and they couldn't find him for over 10 months. So I went back to the court so many times. They served him several subpoenas, and he just didn't come to court. It was by accident the police found him.
I've been here 3 times. The first time I was here, I wasn't even sure that I really wanted to leave. I just wanted to get away from the violence, just figuring, well, he'll cool off and then
You hadn't necessarily made any plans to.
No, I didn't make any decisions. I just wanted to get out, before it got worse.
He's a medical doctor. He's even a specialist. He's a gynecologist, obstetrician, and he used to scare me and say to me that if I talked about it, that he could mix some drugs, because we always had doctors always have samples, samples at home all the time. That he could mix up some kind of drug samples and inject it in me when I was sleeping, and that I would die, and that nobody.
Gradually, you get to hear more and more of the women talking, and all the different experiences, and a lot of things that are related. Say, someone says something and, oh, that happened to me too, you know.
I was really scared, like he can push me and I kill myself, like he used to do. So I decided to leave him, and I don't want my son be alone because I know what means life without mother.
There are many factors that influence a decision to return to a husband. One may be just the simple lack of laws that will protect her if she goes out on her own. And she may feel that, well, if she's living with him, at least she knows what to expect. Whereas if she's living alone and he said, one day I'm going to kill you, she's going to lie awake all night wondering, well, is this the night that he's going to break into my house? There's also the financial aspect of her life that is really a problem for her. Often women are on welfare, and that means that she, quite frankly, doesn't eat the last week of the month. And she may see her children being undernourished, so she may decide to go home just for that fact that, you know, they're just not getting the basic things in life that they need to survive.
Living in the second stage apartments.
The staff at the transition house are there to support each woman's own decision, whether it is to return to her husband or to leave. Their goal is to provide her with as many options and resources as they can.
She's applied for welfare, although she's feeling really bad about applying for welfare. She's feeling insecure about going lower on the social scale. In terms of resources right now, we referred her to legal services and welfare. And her appointment has been set, and also with legal aid it's been set. Is there anything else?
There's been a few incidents over the weekend where she thought she saw his car at the corner, and like her reaction was really extreme, like running after me down the street. And I sort of tried to calm her down and say, look, it's okay, you know, so calm down a bit. But she was really hyper.
I was petrified because he was a lot bigger than I was, weighed about more than twice what I did. He'd make me kneel in a corner, and I'd have to ask permission even to go to the bathroom. And then if I was crying, he'd start hitting and, you know, stop crying, you know. And when he got all tense and his face got just about green and his fists were up, I mean, you did what he wanted and said what he wanted. I want absolutely nothing to do with him anymore.
Do you intend to go back to the house you were living before?
No.
No. Does your husband have any money?
He did. I don't know if he still does, but...
Okay. Yeah. Who's the owner of the house?
He is.
He is?
Yeah.
You're not co-owner? You never signed any paper?
No, it's in his name.
Okay. And what about the furniture?
That's in my name.
That's in your name?
Yeah.
And you intend to get it back?
Well, if I can, yes.
Okay, well, I'll tell you. What we will do is serve him with a petition for divorce, which is a long-term proceeding. And in the meanwhile, we can, in short delays, go to court, and on the first time have...
In the beginning, the police didn't want me to go to the house because of the fact that my husband was so violent, and they feared that he could be there or have someone there stalking and waiting with a gun or something. And not only myself, but the police force could be in danger.
These fears are not unfounded. Wife battering can and often does lead to murder. 60% of all female homicide victims are killed within the family context, and this figure would be higher if it took into account the murders of women who have already fled from their husband or common-law partner. For a policeman, intervening in a family dispute is statistically just as dangerous as intervening in an armed robbery.
Whether you want to or not, there are always memories. And you're afraid, and at the same time you're sad because, you know, this is the last time I'll probably see all of this, and I'm never coming back here again. You know, it's like a page in a book that you're turning. Our house was right across from the school, where he worked. He was a teacher there. He taught morality and religion.
The contrast of going from a middle-class house that you've spent years building to make sure that it's what you want and you feel comfortable living there, into a slum apartment, dealing with slum landlords, having nothing that belonged to you in the past, nothing that means anything to you, is very depressing. And even though you may be ready to make that sacrifice yourself, is it fair to your children? They're leaving everything they had behind them also, their school, their friends, their teachers, their toys, everything.
When I left the shelter, I moved to LaSalle, but it was hard, like on me, it was hard on the kids because it's like a totally different way of life. You know, we're used to living under reserve, you know everybody, and then you're in the city and, you know, you don't know nobody, you don't even know your neighbors, and, you know, like you're alone. So it made everything harder.
And then meantime I had no friends to depend on like I used to before because he had eliminated all my friends. So I found it very hard to reorganize myself and start over.
Oui, on va aller dans ma chambre pour commencer.
Oh, God. Juste une petite minute.
I had a hard time with my two sons because they were like hyper and, you know, their behavior was really, one's 5 and the other one's 8. Like they just changed so much. They got like aggressive and like they were angry. They had a hard time to get along with other kids, you know. Everything changed, and now they're like going back to the way you were before. You know, they don't fight as much, they're not as aggressive, and, you know, I even had a hard time dealing with them.
And he would have nightmares just about every night and shake like a leaf, and I'd have to hold him until rock him to sleep, you know. And then, well, it's the age 2. When they get to be 2, they get to the hitting stage and the biting stage. But the first time he hit me, I said, oh no, not the sun who's going to start now, you know. during the week. He's coming to pick up in my place. Then my son used to say, when I asked him, "Do you love mommy?" He said, "I love mommy and I love daddy."
Because it's very bad on the children. They don't forget very easy. After 3 years, my children still talk about it. And I encourage them to let loose, to talk about their feelings.
We had to come because my mom and my stepfather weren't getting along. They were fighting constantly. And it was terrible, you know. My mother just had to get out because she couldn't take it anymore. And he'd get angry at me, and then they'd be fighting all night and be swearing at her. And, you know, people downstairs would hear us and tell us to try, you know, to stop making these noises. My brother would get hyper and start screaming too.
Do you remember why you were staying here?
Yeah.
Why were you staying here?
Because Mom, and Casina littered us and beat Mom up again. That's why.
Right? And do you
Yeah.
remember when that happened?
Yeah.
How did that make you feel when that happened?
I don't know.
You don't know?
No.
Did you feel sad a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I did. And I was talking to Casina a lot.
Yeah.
In my room.
And you like to stay in your room?
Yeah. I like staying in it when I do not sleep.
We just grabbed our stuff, went to a phone booth, called here, and we just hurried up and we left before he came home. She was scared. She was scared to go out on her own again because this isn't the first time. And she was scared that she wouldn't have any money to feed us or someone would take us away or something.
Most women who live in transition houses must go on welfare after they stay in the shelter, which is about a month long. What happens, they run into all kinds of difficulty. For example, landlords don't like to rent to single parents. They also don't like to rent to people who are on welfare. And then on top of that, if you happen to be the wrong color, you're going to have even more problems. So what we want to do with second stage housing is give the woman and her children a place to stay for a little bit longer period of time so she can get back on her feet, either financially, have a little bit of time to put money aside, or start taking courses to get involved in, to learn some marketable skills. Maybe even find a job by the time she leaves here. And on top of that, again, we have the same issue of women helping women and supporting each other in an informal context. That's very important. When we wanted to get into second stage housing, we realized that there wasn't a lot of money with government funding. What we did was we asked the community for their support in terms of money donations or time and furniture. We've been very fortunate in that aspect, and we've done it all ourselves, which makes us very proud. Hi, Ruth.
Oh, hi.
Look at this. This is
looking better, right?
Yeah, I can't believe the change in here. It looks terrific. Thanks for giving up your Saturday for this.
Oh, no problem.
You really can see the difference.
Thank you.
And the stability emotionally, I mean, I used to jump least little thing, you know, and now I hadn't sung or smiled or done anything in about 2 years. So I'm getting to be more my old self before I got married, but I still have a ways to go. So
I want to wait till my youngest son is in school full time, and then I want to go back to school, and then eventually.
What would you like to do?
I want to take up computers.
Oh, do you?
It's very expensive, and another problem is usually the courses is during the evening time. So I don't have nobody to watch my son.
Yes, babysitting is very expensive today.
Can't go out the door without dishing out $10.
Yeah. I consider us very lucky. And I feel bad for the women that can't get help or are too scared to get help because of all the traumatic experiences them and their children go through.
Nice to see you. Yeah, you too. How you doing? Well, you're not gonna believe this. I've got a job. Are you kidding? No. That's wonderful. Gee, I got it 2 weeks ago at Employment Canada for federal.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah. Oh, 2 whole weeks. Yeah.
Oh, that's what you wanted.
Oh God, yes. It's gonna do so much good for both of us. Him not to be around me all the time, and me to see people.
Now I keep wondering how I stood it for so long, you know. And I found every month I see a change, that I'm growing more confident, that I laugh more, that I smile more. I even start singing again. There are pluses and minuses, that's for sure. And it's time that helps you. It's very, very lonely being alone with a child. But at least you're your own person. You're free.
Sylvie is free, but for every battered woman like her who gets out, there are 9 more who don't. And there aren't enough transition houses in Canada for all of them.